Hello and welcome to another day in the arena, but we've got a special day for you today. It is a day for an hour of Devastation draft. They've introduced draft to arena, and right now it is 750 gem or 5,000 gold to draft. If you're wondering what that costs, it's currently $4.99 for $4.99 US dollars for 750 gems. So not a bad price. You get to keep the cards, and they are 15 card packs. So that alone is pretty good value if you are paying for drafts, and not bad. And then we have the prize payouts. If you're trying to break even and get your money back and then some, and you're not worried about the cards, you're looking at 6 out of 7 wins before you make more gems than you put in. So a pretty high bar for the win ratio. Now, if you win 7, you get 950 gems and a booster. There is a chance for extra boosters. It's about 80% of the time you'll get 1 booster. 20% of the time you'll get more than 1 booster, 2 or 3. And the last thing I guess I would note is that you are out after 3 losses, and at that point the cards go to your collection or to your vault progress, and you can no longer play the deck. So that's basically the nuts and bolts of it. They're doing an hour of Devastation, 2 packs of Hour, 1 pack of Amonkhet for this quick draft format. Not Dominaria yet, but that's coming in the future. So let's get in it. 750 gem in, and we jump right into our first pack. I will admit I am probably a below expert. I'm well below expert, possibly average or below average drafter at this point. I'm very out of practice. I had a lot of experience drafting, and once upon a time had a very good draft rating, but it was over a decade ago. A lot has changed in the format since then, and there's a lot of things I need to get right. So I'm going to try to talk through my picks. Take notice that I'm still learning myself, and I will try to give some advice to people who are just starting out. However, I'm sure that if you want to get more in-depth and dense deck and draft strategy, there are probably other sources that can really help you with that, and I'm going to do my best to do well, but you'll have to be nice to me. If I do some things very wrong or I'm very off on some cards or ideas, you're welcome to leave me comments, help me try to get better, although it's possible this will be the only time I draft this format. Anyway, let's take a look at our pack. Right away, we get to pick a card to start making our deck with, and 3 cards jump out to me right away from this pack as the most powerful. Ronus' Last Stand is 2 green for a 5/4. This is not very good in Constructed. Lands you control don't untap, and any removal spell can answer it. Of course, in Constructed, you have access to whatever removal spell you may like, such as an Unsummon can answer this. However, in Draft, it is very hard to get a lot of removal spells, and a 5/4 is often worth what you may have to pay for it. However, the double green cost tells me that this is not likely a first pick, because it requires you to play green very heavily. You can't splash for it, as in play it as a tiny color in your pool. So this would require a lot of green sources and a lot of commitment. Green generally is not my favorite color, or if it is, I want to play ramp strategies. This would go into a ramp deck, but not, first pick doesn't really send that signal anyway. Sand Strangler is a really good card. I'll have to draft some deserts, but it's early in the format, early in the draft, so I'll probably have many shots at cards like Desert of the True and Utility Deserts to turn it on. Getting a 3/3 body and killing something at the same time is very good. The last card I'm looking at the most is Puncturing Blow, which for 5 mana, sorcery speed, can kill just about any creature in the format, and then exiles it. There are some things it doesn't hit. One of them is right here in the pack, the Rampaging Hippo, and there are other large creatures that Puncturing Blow may struggle with, but it is a great answer to a Scarab God, a Scorpion God, things like that sneak in. Although Scorpion God, I believe, has 6 toughness. Oh no, it's a 6/5. It is a good answer to Scorpion God. Not a good answer to Oketra. That's one I was thinking of. However, in this situation, I think what I like most is the Sand Strangler. I don't have to play a lot of red to run it. And I have to play a lot of green for the Ronus's Last Stand. This pushes me pretty hard, the double red. But Sand Strangler, I can get it now, and it's a lot better than getting it later because I can watch out for deserts and value them highly. So I'm going to go with Sand Strangler. Alright, our next pack. Right away, we do have a desert. Green and red are colors that often go together. And it would be a very high pick for a desert. There's also an Ifnu Rivulet here, which is another desert that could be picked up. It would be very aggressive, I think, to grab deserts right this minute, but it's also possibly not the worst idea. The other cards that we're looking at, we have some mediocre creatures in Sidewinder Naga and Harrier Naga. We have, sticking to red, a Manticore Eternal, which is a pretty strong creature. And we've got a Frontline Devastator, which is also a pretty strong creature. Both are zombies. There are zombie synergies here and there, though not as many in red. And this one is probably a little bit better than this one, but both push through a lot of damage. And both are really interesting. We did have to pass a Puncturing Blow, which is going to make us fighting over red. And there weren't any good blue cards. And this pack does have this blue desert. So part of me says I could go for the desert to help the Sand Strangler and look for a red-blue deck, but at the same time, we have to start cutting red pretty hard, or else the person who took that Puncturing Blow isn't going to let us have any red cards in the future. Then I think I'm going to pick the Manticore Eternal for now. I do think it's the strongest overall card here, just at getting through a ton of damage. Alright, our next pack. I see a Torment of Venom, which is a decent removal spell. A Desert of the Mindful, which is worth considering. There is a Bloodwater Entity, which is very good if you have some removal spells in blue and play the Prowess deck. It's really early to want to take this kind of card. At the same time, so far I've kind of got this aggressive deck shaping up. There have been some blue deserts. I'm not sure if they'll get all snatched up. It would be awesome if one of them wheeled. It's probably not very likely that one will, but it might be worth a chance to see if one of them comes all the way back to me in this draft. So I'm going to take the Entity. This is pretty speculative, but it might be the foundation of a pretty solid blue-red aggressive curve. All right, next up, we've got a Zero with Eyes Wide Open as a rare, which searches for a Planeswalker. That would be a very speculative pick. There are some good white cards. The Paramount's okay, but the Aven of Enduring Hope is nice. The Reedstalker's okay, not that great. Both the Titan, which cycles, and the Inferno Jet, which cycles, are pretty nice. And this can be a great way to close a game. And the idea that you can cycle it early, get it back later with the Entity, or just shoot them once, then get it back with the Entity, shoot them again to win, sounds really nice. So I'm going to nab the Inferno Jet. Moving right along, we have the Striped Riverwinder, which is not bad. It's a big cycling body. The Cunning Survivor may end up being the kind of 2-drop that we want, but I don't feel pressured to snatch it now, whereas a Blur of Blade seems like a good grab in the spot. So I'll take the Blur of Blades. It's a softy removal spell. There's also Endless Sands to fulfill our desert requirement, but I don't think we really want to run that. We're going to have to grab desert somewhere, so it's probably going to be early in the next pack now that we have a better idea of what our colors are. Looking at this pack, this is an okay creature, but not great. This is an okay creature, but not great. The white Angels, not bad. There are no red cards. The green creatures are average. Appeal is nice in the right deck, but this isn't anywhere close to that. And Strategic Planning is a decent card. I guess it's another spell that can work with the Entity, but I think I'd almost always rather have an early creature. So I'm going to take the Cunning Survivor here. We have a Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs, which has some desert synergy. And again, we want to look for deserts in our color. We could take this Desert of the Glorified just to have it, but having the black to cycle looks really unlikely. I don't care about any of these creatures. This is probably the best card in the pack, but we've sort of made our bed at this point. I could try to... I mean, not really. We only have 2 blue cards. So this is kind of a tricky pick where the Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs is really tempting. But this is a better card, and if green turns out to be open, I'll really want options. So we'll take that. This pack, the best card is the Dauntless Aven by quite a bit, and we saw some white cards go by earlier. I don't really need another Blur Blades. I think I'll take the Dauntless Aven and have options to get into white. There we have a Desert of the True and a Sandblast going late. So there's some signals that white is open. There's also an Unsummon. So we're getting pulled in two directions here quite a bit. I really do want this Desert of the True. Making Sand Strangler do work is going to be hard at the rate we're going. And the Sandblast and this Unsummon are both sending me mixed signals on what is open. It's weird to take the desert here, but remember, if we have enough deserts, we almost have a removal spell in the Strangler, and I can't guarantee the blue deserts will be here. But the blue deserts might be on their way back around. It would be nice. If this desert's getting past, perhaps a blue desert or the If New Rivulet is right behind it. I'm gonna gamble and go for the Unsummon. Okay, and this is that earlier pack, and it is without the desert, the blue desert. So green is definitely still there. Not a lot of green being picked up. Maybe green-white's where we should have been, but the Proven Combatant, I think at this point I'm going to stick with blue-red and force it a bit. And I guess the Seer's not very likely to get played, but you never know. I'll take the uncommon for, like, none of this is getting played, but I'll take the uncommon for the dusting value, which is another thing to consider. A late Cunning Survivor, which could be useful, a rare for the dusting value. And into the next pack. Dream Stealer is an excellent black card that we are nowhere near playing. We do see another Puncturing Blow. We're very firmly in red, so I have no problem taking that. A Desert of the Mindful that I wish came a little later. This is an excellent green card, but I think it's an easy Puncturing Blow here for a solid removal spell. Wow. Okay, some payoff for sticking to our guns in blue in that last pack. Kefnet's Last Word, gain control of target artifact, creature, enchantment. Lands don't untap is easily one of the best cards in the set. The biggest problems in the set are the indestructible gods that are often mythic. But Kefnet's Last Word says, come over here and join my team, and is an absolute easy slam dunk here. What we'd hope to get all the way around, there are no deserts here, but hopefully we'll grab some along the way, and the Wall of Forgotten Pharaohs can come along with us. There's a Desert of the True, wrong color. It is getting pretty scary not getting to use our Sand Strangler, but at least we have some other removal spells. That said, this pack is really bad. In a nutshell, it is bad. I'm not interested very much in this card. It's okay, but it's not the kind of card I'm looking for. One thing that you can do is add cards to your sideboard right away to get a better look at your deck and your playables. Like Jace's Defeat can't be played. The white cards are out of touch here. And then you can change views, so you see how your deck is doing. We have a 1-drop. I'm going to actually move the spells over here and just look at my creatures, because you got to pay attention to your creature count. And right now it's pretty low. We've got some decent removal in Puncturing Blow, Kefnet's Last Word. Blur Blades is okay. Inferno Jet's a good finisher. Unsummon is fine. The Sand Strangler really wants some deserts to play with, and we just want some bodies, but I don't think we want a Grizzly Bear body. I think that's very weak. I'm optimistic one of these would come later, I could just take the desert though, but it's off color, which is just not good. And yeah, I think you're in, Reed Stalker, which is not the pick you want for that. Okay. So the Frontline Devastator is a decent card. Pushes through more damage. The Unquenchable Thirst is probably one of the better cards. But I think at this point I need more decent creatures. And without the deserts yet, I'm getting very scared that it won't be playable. The Strangler will be playable. Taking it here means we almost want to snatch every desert we see the rest of the way. Even the ones that wouldn't normally be playable in our deck. I don't really want to take that gamble. I have other good removal spells. I don't want this to turn out to be a very mediocre card in my aggressive deck. So I'll take the Devastator and add another creature to the team. 2 off-color deserts. I suppose we could have gone back in time and taken like the higher pick deserts. Life might be different. Wildfire Eternal is a good card, and we do have spells to cast with it, like Inferno Jet. So I think I have the right build. That said, we've taken 3 4-drops in a row. One of these might not be playable in Sand Strangler, but we do want to look for some cheaper cards. That said, my next pack doesn't really contain anything but this Frontline Devastator for me. So we'll take it. It's a good card, but we've really gotta get some earlier drops. Another Cunning Survivor is not what I had in mind. I think we'll take the Striped River Winder. We are at a spot where we could just grab a green desert, just to have a desert in the deck, but I think I'm off the Strangler working out unless we see some really late stuff come around. So I'll take the River Winder. It may or may not work out. There's a Desert of the Mindful. Easy pick. Easy pick. Try to get our Sand Strangler playable. I think even having 1 kind of creates a 2-card combo that's good enough. We'll take this Lizard. It's not a very good card, but it's decent, and we might be the kind of deck that needs to beat down. In general, I just need some good earlier cards. Here's a Tragic Lesson, which can go well with the Entity for some value. It's okay. I guess we can take this card. I don't want to play it. I'm going to sideboard it, but it might have to go in. We got another River Winder and another Tragic Lesson. At this point, it's about, do we want more spells? Or do we want more like big endgame potential bodies? We also have these cycle or discard a card +1/+0 survivors. So I think I'll take the River Winder here. We have a very late desert. I don't think we'll play it, but it might just be what we take to try to make the Sand Strangler do work. How do we make that go away again? Okay, so we open our last pack. The blue-red Dream is alive, but it is not healthy right now, as this is pretty rough. However, I think potentially the best card here is the Hazard's Monument. We do have multiple more expensive creatures. This says anytime you cast a creature, you can rummage. Is rummaging worth it? I'm not sure how good the Monument is. Our creature count is also not in a perfect place. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I don't really want to play this. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then possibly 12, 13. But this doesn't reduce the cost of that. Our spells are much more solid. Maybe I'm underrating the Monument. I just look at it and I don't get impressed. It's not really where I want my turn 3. On the other hand, this is Embalm blue 2-drop seems decent, but not great. I mean, what is it really doing out there? Attacking once or twice, chump blocking? That's not inspiring. But I'd rather have a creature than play this and not have creatures to play, which is my big concern with the low creature count I have right now. So this is not the first pick you want, but I think it's the first pick I have to take. Labyrinth Guardian is much better, And there it is. Wish I'd had that last time. Return up to 2 cards with cycling from your graveyard to your hand. Seems ambitious. Lay claim. You control enchanted permanent for 7. It's very expensive. And we already have a Kefnet's Last Word. Otherwise, I might get more interested. The Aven Initiate, though, another 4-drop, which we have a lot of these, but it's a very good card and is probably much better than a Reed Stalker, which I don't want to play very much. So let's get it in there. Next pack is very dry, which is unfortunate. Plenty of red players around. Here's a Onward, which can double our creature's power, but I don't have really good combinations for that whatsoever. And just playing the front side, I'd never play that card. Violent Impact, taking out an artifact or land. This doesn't seem like a format with too many artifacts, but the fact is that there is a card called Edifice of Authority that's a big pain and might be worth running a card like this. It's also a sorcery, a spell, so you can get it back with Bloodwater. It also cycles, so it works with the survivors. So I'll consider it, especially if we run short on playables. Wow. Along came a Pull from Tomorrow, but we also have this Cartouche of Knowledge. At this point, I feel like I'm a spell combo deck with Bloodwater, Entity, the Inferno Jet, the Kefnet's Last Word, and maybe I am optimistic, but I want this Pull from Tomorrow. Can I make a slot over here? Yeah, I guess keeping it around the 7 drops is fine. Wow, Glyph Keeper's an absolute bomb, and very much what I want. I wish it came separate from this Essence Scatter, but at least our red got cut off, but at least we're being paid in blue. We're being paid in blue. Now we have a Cartouche of Knowledge, pretty late. Floodwaters is all right, but Seraph of the Suns, no. Trueheart Twins is actually a very good card, and another 5-drop. The Cradle of the Accursed is a good 18th land in a deck that already wants a land that turns on Sand Strangler. I love this. I love this. They're both worthy picks. None of them I think are better than having a turned on Sand Strangler and a higher land count to be more consistent. Let me count my creatures one more time. 1, 2, 3, 4. Probably not you, although an alternate win con of milling the opponent is starting to look appetizing. 5, maybe. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, maybe. 13, 14. And maybe these 15, 16s. I mean, we're kind of a control deck, so we actually have enough creatures. So I am going to take the Cradle of the Accursed, and wow, there's another one. How much do I want? So we're probably running 18 land, so let's work on this deck a little bit before we make this pick, because it depends on how we're going to improve it. Sand Strangler, you're looking better. These cards are great. These Riverwinders should help the survivors early while also possibly winning the game later. The removal here with a Blur, a Kefnet, maybe an impact, but probably not an impact. It's tough. It is kind of a catch-all, and we are a control deck, so getting to actually catch all of our opponent's bombs is important. We're not attacking hard. This isn't... I don't feel like this is a good prowess, like, beat you down deck. 3 drops are pretty open. But, let's see. 27 plus 17... is 30, 44. So we're already over our playables. So the question is, what are some cards we don't really want to play? I don't really want to play you, which if I'm not playing that attacking, maybe we do keep this. Maybe even milling the opponent is an alternate win con. Weird. I'd say this is a pretty weak card. I still like these. So what do we have here? Oh, 2 of these are lands. I have to remember that. we go over here, 26 out of 40, so 24 out of 40 means we're still cutting a card at this point. And I don't think that the Kenra or the Pursue Glory are better than any of the cards that we would cut. Therefore, if we can take a land and keep turning on Sand Strangler, I think that's the right play. Desert Ceradon is a very good one. New Perspectives is interesting. It is 6 mana to draw 3, which is a lot worse than Pull from Tomorrow, and we don't have that much cycling going on, so I don't think we're taking it. However, it is a sweet rare draft. Desert Ceradon it's almost better than playing 2 Riverwinders, because we could actually cast this to fill the curve at 6 and then Striped Riverwinder at 7. So I'm gonna take you. Again, it gives our deck good velocity. Maybe we don't need 18 lands if we get to cycle this. The Hazardous Monument came all the way back around. I just can't picture myself using it. However, since none of these are making the deck, we gotta go with the Dust Value. Is Blazing Volley good enough? I don't think so. An interesting card, but I don't think this format's about killing 1 toughness creatures very much. It seems like a slow format. Now, Hyena is good, but we have better 4-drops, so it's not making the deck, so we'll take the Dust Value. And none of these are going to get played, so we'll take the Dust Value. It's starting to sound repetitive. This is another decent control card to just shut down like a big body that they might play. But cancel, play some counter spells in the deck sounds interesting to me, as we've got an interesting blue-red control deck that we've tossed together. And that's it. Let's get into deck building. Oh, we cracked the vault. So as you see, counts towards the vault. That's nice. 8 islands and a Desert of the Mindful, 6 mountains, 2 Cradle of the Accursed. So, because these are colorless lands, and with the amount of cycling we have, we could try cutting a land, but I actually think it's better to try to play those cyclers. This feels like an 18 land deck to me, in that it has these payoffs in Pull from Tomorrow, good removal, good mana sinks, and just great cards up the curve, whereas missing land drops seems very lethal. Most of the time 17 lands is what you play, but I think going to 18 here is right, especially with the cycling land and the Cradle of the Accursed for a little value. That leaves us 4 cards to cut from the deck. What are the weakest cards that we have that don't play? It's tempting, like this would be a pure sideboard card 100% of the time in normal draft, but in best of 1, whether or not to run this is very tricky. On one hand, you could mana screw the opponent or take out an important artifact like Edifice of Authority. On the other hand, my deck turned out such that I'm not scared of Edifice of Authority. Glyphkeeper and 2 Striped Riverwinders can end the game despite Edifice of Authority. Therefore, I'm going to cut the impact and not look back. I'm really thrilled that we have spells to cast, although you never cast Pull from Tomorrow off Wildfire Eternal, but we have spells to cast off the Wildfire Eternal, and it's got that big 4 toughness to do some blocking. Kefnet's Last Word is wonderful. We do have a lot of 4s. A lot of 4s. So something may have to go here. Perhaps I don't need both Devastators. I think it's the Reedstalker is clearly the weakest, though, so I'll cut that one right away. Tragic Lesson is kind of fun, but likely not needed with a Pull from Tomorrow in the deck. Cancel I'm much more interested in, since we're kind of a slow rollout deck without many early creatures. Still happy with the Skirmisher, happy with the Survivors. Unsummon is more of a tempo play, but we have interesting tricks like unsummoning the Entity and unsummoning the Sand Strangler. So it's worth keeping. So perhaps Proving Combatant isn't the worst card, although bringing it back as a 4/4 later and have it do some blocking or attempting to trade early is a pretty neat play. Again, Seer of the Last Tomorrow is not a great card, but since we just don't have many early drops, I feel like we need it. So looking into this, we got creature-wise 1, and then 4. Only 4 early creatures. So I actually do think I have to cut a frontline Devastator. It's a much more aggressive creature than the deck turned out to be. So having 1 seems good because it might push through a good amount of damage late game after some stabilizing and maybe help us set up for an Inferno Jet or a Glyph Keeper, a Manticore Eternal to do some damage. But I don't think it quite fit the theme enough to run 2. So with that, I think we have our deck. Let's have another look here. The curve is funky. We're running 18 lands to make sure that we get to play our 4 drops on time. The format's a little bit slow. We have 7 non-creature spells. One of them is a big card drawer, and 6 are removal-ish, so I'm very happy with that. 15 creatures is about right. I like the 18 lands, and we have 3 deserts that we wound up with to try to make our Sand Strangler run. So I think that will be fine. The deck seems decent, and we're gonna play it. Opponent will be on the play, so I really need to see a 2 or 3 drop in this hand. I don't want to be so slow that I can't answer some early cards. Most of what I've played against in the format so far are black-white zombie decks that skew kind of aggressive. This doesn't have those things. It does have 2 cycling cards and an unsummon, and it has the cycling Inferno Jet. So this is kind of a mystery hand. I don't really know what this hand is. Once I cycle a Riverwinder, an Inferno Jet, and the Desert, this is basically the 4 cards I have left are unsummon and 3 lands, one of which has some late game value. That's a very mediocre hand. That said, if my opponent's not doing much, it's always hard for me to mulligan hands like this because of the mystery factor. And our opponent already took a mulligan, so just keeping up on cards, I think we'll keep it and be optimistic. Our opponent looking at their 6-card hand and deciding to keep. And opening on a plains, we draw an island, so we'll end turn. And at the end of their turn, decide if we want to cycle a Riverwinder. I think we do if we see any kind of a play, any creature that is threatening, and that counts. That counts. Yep, we will cycle this. It's a very good 2-drop. And so far, drawing pretty average. Nothing to get excited about just yet. If our opponent goes for some kind of a trial or a cartouche here, at least we have the unsummon. But I don't believe I just want to unsummon this right away. I think I'm better off cycling the Desert of the Mindful. Alright, no other plays. Desert of the Mindful has a mana requirement of a blue mana to cycle it, so I think that's why it's a better cycle there than the Inferno Jet. The Inferno Jet's also unlikely to get to do anything other than cycle at this stage so far. Alright, it's a very slow hand. Oh, this is very much what we signed up for, though. Our opponent, not sure what they're looking at in their hand. Must be some kind of a pump spell. Right. I believe at this stage, if I bounce this and then they play it back as a 1/1 and attacks as a 2/2 into the Devastator, we'll know that there's a combat trick. But I think that now is the time. Cleopatra's Mark, which will make it a 4/4 and give it hexproof, is interesting. Hopefully we can cycle Inferno Jet and find a removal spell, or Kefnet's Last Word, something. As it's now bigger than our Devastator, unfortunately. It's a very untimely cancel. But next turn we can play the Survivor and the cancel, possibly gang up on this Exemplar of Strength. So we'll get the Devastator down now. Devastator can also possibly pump and try to trade off. So we have to take a pretty big hit here, go to 10, but our opponent's stuck on 3 lands. I think what I want to do... I think it's better to play the Survivor. If our opponent attacks, it gives away their intentions if they have a pump spell, and then possibly we do a double block. And when our opponent plays the pump spell, we can cancel it. Now that's not fantastic. The Exemplar still kills our Devastator. Okay, a Dauntless Aven is the play. I don't have an answer to that now. We do have a Blur Blade somewhere in the deck, and we have multiple flyers. But it does give away that our opponent probably doesn't have the pump spell. And since I'd love to pull from Tomorrow soon, I think I'll use this counter spell. Okay. We'll play the Cradle to get out of our hand. If we end up with 1 land in our hand when we go to pull, we very much want the Cradle on the battlefield. So this says whenever you discard a card, so that does include when I pull from Tomorrow. Attacking here, though, with the Frontline Devastator seems so aggressive when I'm at 10 that I can't really do that. However, I think pulling for 4 here is worth it. Unless we end up trying to use the Devastator to trade with the Exemplar somehow. Our opponent finds her 4th land. I'm guessing we'll see some quality critter, and it is indeed a Tenacious Hunter, which is a 4/4 Vigilant Death Touch if a creature has a -1/-1 counter on it, which right now not the case. Alright, still no attack from the Exemplar. Let's go ahead and refill this hand. Oh my. Oh my. Well, we found the Wildfire Eternal. It took some work. Not pleased. I think I'll leave up 2 blue. Our opponent saw a cancel once. Now we've got those big booty critters. Still, this can't profitably block any of these. It's a chumper. Devastator can try to trade. I don't think our opponent has a pump spell or we would have seen it. I'm guessing he just has some expensive creatures. Possibly a 6-drop Angel, which we have to find an answer for. Right now I'd be happy just to trade the Devastator for the Tenacious Hunter, but our opponent's still not attacking. Wow, we've drawn many lands. We also keep our opponent scared of cancel here. 1, 2, 3. So let's make our zombie to join the team. Seven, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 of our 18 lands have been drawn. 14 out of 18. So there's 4 left in the bottom 18 cards. So while you may have some questions about 18 lands in the deck when you see a hand like this, I think it's important to understand just how out of the ordinary, what a crazy out of the ordinary situation we're in now with the amount that we've drawn. Here's a Miriarch. This would be a great Kefnet's Last Word target. It is a very big thing. This is getting very unreal. Three lands are left out of 17 cards. A Ship at Dunes is a very scary card. Right now, the only ability this gains is Vigilance, because without a -1/-1 counter, the Death Touch doesn't kick in. Not that that would particularly matter until Trample got involved. Right now, it's a big old body that somebody would have to block. Opponent might be thinking about using the dunes here and just jamming. We would have some interesting blocks. Wildfire Eternal could stay ahead of the Sentinel. Frontline Devastator could trade with one of these. The Survivor or the Zombie could jump in front of something else, and we could take the other damage. We'd be left with a Wildfire Eternal and possibly one other chumper. Then if we draw a Kefneth's Last Word, we're doing okay. Ah, I see. Appeal to Authority. It's probably going to turn out lethal since it grants trample to this creature. And then we tap these. And it looks like this flood is going to be more than too much to do us in. Very sad for an opening game to get flooded out so bad after a pull from tomorrow. But that's Magic. Sometimes Magic does that to you. So just the trample alone has us dead here. There's nothing we can do. We can block these two to soak up as much damage as possible and still be well beyond dead. I don't know what our opponent is waiting for, but since they're taking a little longer than I'd like, let's just concede out. All right, game one, not the way that we'd want. Deck held up reasonably well considering that we were able to put some bodies on the board, keep the opponent back for a little while, and try to get back in the game. That Miriarch was a nice card, but if we had an answer to it, things might be okay. Appeal to Authority is pretty nasty, so here we go. We've got a mulligan to 6 and a keep. And a proven combatant on 1, which, I'll match you. I'll go ahead and take a block here. I think it's more likely that we'll get to Eternalize first, based on not being on a mulligan, and having more lands in our deck than normal. Okay, opponent misses a land drop. Play the Cunning Survivor, hold up cycling the Ceradon, which is very likely to be the play. Opponent's still with no play here. I want to keep hitting my land drops, makes pull from tomorrow better. I'm not that worried about getting in one more damage that I would wait till my turn. Unfortunately, 18 lands, and this game we're going to miss a few land drops, but we'll do our best. I'll play this and hold up the Unsummon. If we get to play it, we can get it back with the entity if we want, but though right now what I want most is to draw lands. Okay, there's number 4. Not a lot to do with it here. So let's get him. We do have the pull from tomorrow to discard a card and pump the survivors at some point, but right now, we don't need to do anything there. Our opponent found a red source, so it's likely to be game on. Perhaps a Magma Spray as they look at the Skirmisher, a Blur Blades. We could counter that and return this to our hand, however, we can just Eternalize this card, and we don't have another play with our mana at the moment, so we'll let that resolve. Sand Strangler off the top, no deserts yet. Let's bring the Skirmisher back out. And keep getting some chip damage in with our Cunning Survivors. I wouldn't mind winning fast, but I don't feel like I need to. There's an entity getting back the Blur, which play that we considered as well. But now the opponent does have to redraw the Blur. I think here we'll attack, and if our opponent takes a block here, it's not a bad idea to pull from tomorrow and kill the entity. I don't want to spend the Kefnet's Last Word on it. So there's the block. Our opponent will take 4, we'll draw 3, discard 1. And what to discard? Sand Strangler still does not have a desert, but I think it's worth being patient for because the upside is so high. Unsummon will come in huge on the Proven Combatant if they ever get it back. Our opponent's going to scoop. I think in the end... that was a pretty tough decision, but I think in the end I may have discarded the Blur of Blades for that situation. Yay! A little bit of gold, our first win. Game 3. We are on the draw again. Seems to be the trend. This opponent does not mulligan. And we do have the on the draw 2-drop, which is pretty important. A Blur of Blades as well, a Desert, and a Sand Strangler. So this is a... Now that we have 4 lands, I don't intend to cycle the Striped River Winder. It would take something happening to force my hand there. Kenra Eternal is not it. Alright, let's get out our Cunning Survivor. I'm really not too worried about a combat trick. If my opponent wants to kill the Cunning Survivor, it's just a very mediocre card and I don't feel too bad. With the Sand Strangler in hand, I'm sure I'll be able to come back. So we'll play a block here. It also gets our opponent kind of in the habit of doing this attack, and possibly next turn we can get them with Blur of Blades or cycling the Survivor. I said cycling the Survivor, of course I mean cycling the Striped River Winder. We also have Cancel available. Here he comes. So it looks like our opponent tried to get kind of a black-blue aggressive deck. Let's see what happens here. Here's an Afflict, Resolve. Cycle you. Doesn't look like our opponent has many effects, so damage. And we have an Aerial Guide, so that's a pretty good target for Sand Strangler. And I think I'll hold off on cycling this and instead use Blur Blades on the Rat so we can start attacking right away. I'll get to exile something. If he exiles the Blur, that would be the intelligent choice because of Bloodwater Entity. Yep. Okay, we'll untap there. We have to remember to play a Desert. So Cradle of the Accursed comes down, Sand Strangler comes down. And here we go. Now as long as we get to untap and the board is, if we're still slightly ahead, we'll be in good spot with the cancel. But let's see what our opponent does. Soul Stinger is a pretty good play. Can't really attack into that well. Thankfully for us, we're not that big on attacking anyway. Here I'm gonna hold the Skirmisher, save the cancel mana, potentially cycle the Desert. A Puncturing Blow to exile this would be nice. There is a Flyer. It's a worthy target. Our opponent still has 3 more spell cards in hand, so I'm nervous using that cancel, but I'm erring on the side of optimism that I will be able to draw more good stuff. So here, he could block here and put the counters on it, get rid of it, and I guess we're getting it for damage. So let's do it. Let's make that swap happen so we can play our other creatures and get past this Soul Stinger part of the game. Interesting. So our opponent willing to take the damage and doesn't want to move past the Soul Stinger part of the game. So because these have Eternalize, I'm not as worried about them having things that getting killed by the Soul Stinger. We'll play this mountain and hang on to this for the cycles. A little pump fake from the opponent. So, do we want to just get in? Keep trying to push damage? Our opponent holds up 4 mana. Are they a bunch of 5-drops? Are they some double blue cards? Or do they have a removal spell? Torrent of Venom sounds nice, but it would let me sacrifice my combatant and get it back. I think we want to continue the pressure. Seeing the Skirmisher die, though, would it be that great? So we'll attack this way. Getting a combatant back would be most likely rather excellent. Ah, we have a Reed Stalker. Alright. See where the Reed Stalker would like to block. Okay. See what Soul Stinger wants to do. I'm guessing it would be kill the Sand Strangler. Alright. Ah, it says end combat now. Hopefully they fix that first strike issue as well. Alright, bring out the combatant. So we have a 4/4 ready to roll. And let's end the turn. I still want to save this for the cycling shenanigans with Survivor. Even though we have some 7-drops, well, one more 7-drop in another Riverwinder. Strategic planning. And it looks like our opponent didn't have an awesome double blue card like a Glyph Keeper, or I think we would have seen that. So this isn't a trade, this is potentially one. Let's get in and see what our opponent does. Their blocks. Alright. That's just a bounce right now. Unless we cycle into Cycler. Interesting. Well, I don't believe we should try to cycle into Cycler. Let's just trade the Eternal here. Save the trick. And we'll play the other Cunning Survivor. We'll make a zombie. We'll continue playing out lands because we run Pull from tomorrow, except for the cycling one. And we're ahead a bit on board. Let's see if our opponent has some black-blue bomb card that they can play here, like a Scarab God. We would have answers in the deck like Puncturing Blow and Last Word, but those haven't shown up so far, and our opponent without the play. So there's a cancel on top of our deck that we can get. That seems, or in the graveyard that we can get with the entity. That seems good in this spot, as it forces our opponent to make some plays. I think here is likely some kind of trick or flash creature, but our opponent most wants to kill this. If they blocked like our zombie and they just took 3, that wouldn't be very good. So let's attack with these guys and still keep these bodies around. It's important to remember in moments like this where it's tempting to shove completely into your opponent and their open mana that we're also a control deck. We don't really mind too much. Now may as well be a time to get some damage through. We don't mind waiting. We can be patient. It's okay. Now I'm sure something bad's going to happen over here. That's just the way it goes. And it's a Torment of Venom. And I'll lose 3 life. I have life to play with. And I'll play the entity, get the cancel. The only problem with that is if our opponent pulls ahead this next turn with a big play, we're behind. But I think it's worth the gamble. And I'll hold this because there might be another Torment of Venom where I'd want to discard this land. Our opponent did a good thing responding to the cycling trigger so that I didn't get to see this before making the Torment of Venom choice. If I had this to discard, I definitely would. Trial of Ambition. Sacrifice Skirmisher and get it back. No big deal. We still have a 7 life lead, so I don't think our opponent can start attacking us now that he knows about the cancel. So I guess in the spirit of making things happen, we'll play the land so that we can bring this out and hold up the cancel. But we don't have attacks here. We're going to have to wait, which is why it's good to have a good late game like we do. We can wait. We have the Inferno Jet, which means when we draw it, we only have to push through 1 more damage, so we can play this Inferno Jet game. It's also tempting to just shove here and get that damage through while our opponent only has 1 card. I find that too aggressive though, too much material to give up. So let's get out the Initiate, who as a flying and embalm creature is pretty darn good. And the opponent's going to go for a cancel. We could cancel the cancel. Is that worth it? Because we can just bring this back next turn, but that takes down our cancel shields. So I'm going to force it. I'm going to force the action here for the Ape and Initiate. And it also makes our entity a 3/3, which means we get a swing. Which means next turn these 2 are threatening lethal, and the board is threatening lethal. River Serpent I don't think will prevent that, so if this blocks here, our opponent takes 2 for sure, and if these block here and here, then our opponent takes 2 more, so we have lethal. There's a block. There's a block. Alright, and now there's 3 coming through, and we'll show our opponent that we indeed have it. The top deck pull from tomorrow, card that's been the MVP so far for certain. Red deck doing interesting things. We haven't had the bombiest draws yet. There's a lot of early picks we haven't seen at all, so I don't think we've seen the best of the deck. But pull from tomorrow keeps showing up and keeping us in games. You can say that there was a game where it drew 4 lands, and you would be right, but it would have been a lot more painful to draw those off the top of the deck. And based on how the deck ended up being stacked, there's just no way. Now this hand has our good removal cards, but not many lands. Since we do run 18, and we have the 2-drop, I'm going to keep it based on the cyclers and hope to get there. We are on the play for a change. Again, I'll hold the River Winder. Give the Survivor a chance to possibly do some beatdowns. Some extra damage if our opponent doesn't have a 2-drop. Blue and green, what could be going on here? There's a card. Alright, let's see if they're crazy. Are you crazy? Doesn't want to be bluffed, I guess. Alright, we'll cycle here and try to hit. We need to hit a land. Oh my. We're really going to go this way? Am I really not going to draw lands now? There's 16 lands left in the deck, so that's a greater than 50% chance. So we're flipping coins, trying to stay in this game. And so far we're losing those coin flips. a few chip shots here that could come back later and be helpful. Another coin flip, please. Thank you. If we hit another land and play a Sand Strangler, we're probably right in this game. Of course, we'll see what our opponent can do with their turn. Do they add a big threat? They add a tiny threat. And they add a medium. And we do not draw a land. Oh, mana, thou art cruel and heartless. I think our best play is to get out this 2/2 and try to trade it and be mana efficient so that hopefully when a land does come, we don't have many things rotten in our hand. Is that good enough? A land off the top means Sand Strangler. The following turn, it might mean either Kevnet's Last Word or Puncturing Blow. Worst case scenario, neither. Is it better to unsummon something here and live longer? I could get my opponent to spend mana and bounce this. So is it better to have the 2/2 body that can potentially square off with the guide and trade with something? Or is it better to bounce something and hope to draw the land? We're hoping to draw the land no matter what, of course. We could also bounce the Aerial Guide. Our opponent could just exert these creatures, which just leaves me with very bad blocks. It's very rough. I do feel like I'm better off with the unsummon, and hopefully our opponent commits something, but the fact is they just won't with untapped mana. Maybe the best thing I can do is get them to pump their Sandwalla and replay it. That's not very good to me. But the entity does have that grind potential we might need. So I think that's what we're going to do is the unsummon line. Here they come. Looks like we're going to be exerting. And the Aerial Guide will probably hit the Sandwalla. No, hits the Warrior. Does not exert. Okay. Let's block the Sandwalla. Tax our opponent's mana a little bit. And hope for that land off the top. And we do not receive it. How frustrating. How frustrating. If I had a complaint about the draft format right now, it's that you are a few bad draws, such as a mana flood or a mana screw away from losing your deck. Once you get your third loss here, we have a loss to what I would say is a high variance flood and a loss to a high variance screw. Once you get your third loss, your deck is gone. I mean, it goes into your collection, but you can't play the deck again in another draft. You can't try running it through a different 6 games. And that is a problem. Because sometimes you have a very good deck, and you just never felt like you got the right cards or the right draws, and you really want to play that deck. And you want to know if you drafted well and the deck is actually good, or if you could have drafted better and the deck is actually not good in the format. So as a research tool, there is definitely some suffering to go on in these events. Oh my. Well, we've got the blur. If we draw a desert, our Sand Strangler is good. I'm going to keep. I really avoid mulliganing in limited particularly. I don't think that there are many limited decks that mulligan well. And we'll see where it goes. Festering Mummy right off the bat. A blue mana right off the bat. Thank you very much. Prefer the desert, but can't complain too much. I would definitely trade this for the Festering Mummy if it cares to attack. Proven Combatant always comes back later. It's a big boy. Big grown-up. Got some black and red. Perhaps we have a Act of Treason Fling type deck. Doom Beetle will hit the ground, and that's fine. It's just a big 1/4, and my deck isn't particularly fond of attacking like crazy. Opponent does not want to trade the Mummy, that's fine with me. We drew something we can play next turn, that's fine with me too. It will be our first time playing this card. It has a little bit of synergy. I mean, putting cards into our graveyard isn't that great. Our deck does play a long game, so milling the opponent is unlikely, but might be good to have up our sleeve. But the discarding a card part triggers the 1/3s who activate when you cycle or discard something. I'm trying to decide if this is worth the Blur Blades, but I don't think so. I don't think it's worth anything. I can take 1 point of damage for a little while. There's a 2/1 flyer in the format. There's this, which is a much better target. And I think I'll go ahead and fire that off since I have the opening to do so. Plenty of 1 toughness things to use cards like Blur Blades on. Wonder what the opponent could be waiting for now. And they're going to claim it right back. So I could have done that on end step and done it better. I did not even think of Claim to Fame. Not a good job paying attention on my part. I'll play the Seer. It makes my opponent at least discard a card if they want to go through it. Would have loved to have a Burning Fist Minotaur in my deck. We also haven't found that desert yet. Perhaps Seer can mill a desert to make Sand Strangler better? Tech? Maybe. Now this does +2/+0 and haste to a creature. And there's a Merciless Gatler, which is an excellent creature. Discard card, -1/-1 counter on target creature, and it can't block. Very good. Very good. It would be nice to draw a desert. It would be really nice. I thought I got enough of them into this pool to make Sand Strangler the bomb it deserves to be. Interesting attack. Okay, Anacore Eternal won't do. Not this turn. Next turn, it'll be a big boy. We still have 19 life. There's no reason to get panicky. Pestering Mummy, huh? I will not block you. That is perfectly fine. Our opponent worried about combat tricks. Alright. The Aven Initiate comes off the top, but I think the play is clearly Manticore Eternal. Of course, representing combat trick does have a value of its own. But a big old body. Let's see if our opponent is packing removal for it. Even though it has to attack each turn and might run into a bit of a mess over here with a Festering Mummy and a Burning Fist Minotaur, I think it's a good play. forces our opponent to use their cards, discard some stuff, take some damage. Plus, if we do draw a removal spell or a desert, it becomes a lot better. Opponent might be thinking about using a Javelineer here. I don't think there's anything worth that. But maybe they have a removal spell to also contemplate. They are a thoughtful one. Okay, playing out land. That's interesting when you have these cards on the battlefield, so there might be something more expensive on the agenda. Opponent says go. The draw is not a desert, unfortunately. So our Manticore has to attack, and the opponent can just discard and block, but there's some risk to the play, which I think is our best hope here, that our opponent's intimidated. At worst, they'd still take 3 damage. So let's see what they do. I mean, the worst thing is we kind of blightning them. They discard a card and they take 3 damage. After that, I'm sure that playing the Aven Initiate or the Pull from Tomorrow is the priority. I'm really not sure which. Our opponent doesn't feel comfortable attacking right now, and I'm very happy about that. So, holding up mana and casting Pull seems good, but getting the Initiate out might also be tough for our opponent to deal with. So I'm not sure. Plus, the longer we wait, the more lands we draw, the better a Pull gets, as long as our life total isn't in too much danger. Yep. I know all about this play. Our opponent does make it, and they will get the Manticore. For some reason, they're still being very, 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 very cautious about it. There you go. Alright, end of first strike damage, not end of turn. As you see, our opponent almost burning timeouts here. Down to 1. And do we play the Aven Initiate? I think it's a creature that our opponent doesn't really want to use like their Javelineer on very much, as it just comes back, and I think we're in okay shape. Let's do it. So we have to watch out for Fame, which a creature gets +2/+0 in haste. We'll see if our opponent ever has something big and scary they can use that with. And it might explain why they're playing out some of their lands. And in that case, even making them discard a land is a good one. Alright, so Scrounger of Souls. It's an annoying card. Festering Zombie still wants to come in. We could block it here and see what he wants to do with that counter, but I think just taking 1 is fine, as the counter taking away from our power tokens reduces our options. Let's write River Winder off the top. Big hexproof body here, it would be really good. So I want to draw another land. Keeping the mana up is a bit intimidating, but hitting my land drop is decent too. I think keeping the mana up, our opponent has been showing us that they play this game extremely cautiously. So keeping the mana up might make them make plays they otherwise would not. We also have to try to keep them on their toes from just using Javelineer twice on 2 of our creatures and attacking with a lot of them. We could block the Seer from tomorrow on the Scrounger of Souls, but our opponent will likely use the Javeliner on it. It is their last card, which sort of makes that a bit appealing. However, if I play Sand Strangler next turn from a Desert from the Pull from tomorrow, then killing the Merciless Javeliner will be a priority, and I'm likely to draw something with this pull. I feel like it's a good time to cash in the Combatant and just get it in front of the Scrounger, so it's like it gained me 3 life as well. So that's the play I'm going to make. Our opponent does get the lifelink. I'm not going to overstress it. I think we can find ways to close the game. They are down to 1 last card, and it is going to be a big 5/4 Titan, which we'll have to find something to deal with. A very annoying Menace and a Javeliner. Let's go ahead and draw for no land, but we get the Kefnet's Last Word, which can just take the Titan. So what's the worst card here? And I'm tempted to say it's Cunning Survivor. Glyphkeeper is also a very good card for this spot. The Striped Riverwinder with 1 more land can come down and be a big roadblock. With another island, I could play the Cunning Survivor, but it's just the weakest card here, whereas with the rest of these, we can just go bomb, bomb, bomb for a period of the game. There is a land, but playing Kefnet's Last Word here is very awkward. Stealing the Titan will be very good. It will be the biggest thing on the board. We could also steal the Javeliner, and the Javeliner can kill the Minotaur by discarding a card, which we have a mountain to do that with. But then how do we deal with the Titan? I guess we have a double block, so that's something. There's still a Scrounger of Souls, and then we don't untap for a turn, which is very scary. But what would this be? A 4/2 that can take 2 of these out. The 4/2 can trade with the Scrounger. These 2 can get in front of the Titan, and these aren't that relevant, so that's not too bad. So I think it's the play. I'm very nervous. I'm very nervous. So I think what I'll have to do is discard the Frontline Devastator. I'm still holding on to the Sand Strangler with great hope in my heart. But I want my 7th land on the battlefield for the Riverwinder. And just to have more options. So, end turn. We're going to have a very scary turn, where if our opponent adds something huge here, we're still in trouble. But our life total is high enough that I'm optimistic we can bounce back. How's it gonna be? Our opponent is still being very cautious on these attacks. I think I want to put the Seer here and make my opponent discard a card, and then I can respond with the Javeliner. I would think that they would know that. So there might be a trick involved, but this is the play we're going to make. We'll make him trick us in that case. Okay. Surely our opponent considered this. Why don't we make the play? There we go. And it's a land. So on that note, perhaps our opponent not often using this ability of the Javeliner. Perhaps they're new-ish. They're very cautious, as we pointed out a few times. So we got another little bit of extra value, getting them to discard a land. I guess it's not the hugest deal in the long term, and maybe they were just trying to psych us out in some way. All right. That's that big turn without the untap step. What will happen next? Can we untap and possibly get down a very large hexproof body? Bloodlust Insider is another target for the Javelineer for someday, and it doesn't do much this turn. I'm not going to cycle the Ceradon. I'd rather just have more big monsters to play for the rest of the game. Ah, opponent has possibly decided to become very aggressive, leaving us good blocks. They don't have any instant speed effects on the board. They already played their Insider, so we know they have no tricks. So blocking Initiate to the Titan is a good block. Javelineer can either trade with the Scrounger or just eat at the Doom Beetle. Both of those are fine-ish. And we still don't need to block this Festering Mummy at all. Just not concerned with it, ignoring it for the time being. Okay, land off the top. Still not a desert, but we're holding out. Someday you'll be a king. So we could play the Glyph Keeper and discard the island to kill the Bloodlust Insider. If our opponent does play a very large creature that they don't have the mana to fame, that could be a good play. So I'll make that play instead of the Riverwinder for now. Now that we get an untap step all the time. The Aven Initiate could start attacking, but I think I'm better off being careful. I'm also pretty conservative, but I'm pretty sure that I'm in the best position to be conservative, as we're up 3 significant cards to our opponent's possibly 1. I don't think Fame would be that significant. So is this a case where we want to kill the Insider? No, our opponent can just Fame it instead. And putting a -1/-1 counter on it can greatly lower its potential for damage. And having this trick in general can really mess up an opponent's plans. For example, we could block this Grounder of Souls and then use the Javelineer on it. Yep, there's the ability. That does make a 4/4, which is a little scary. And I'm glad that we held our creatures back, because we still have decent blocks against everything but the 4/4, which we can make to a 3/3. The Seer could get in front. That may just be worth it, as it goes back to being an 0-2, which is practically irrelevant after this. Put it over here. So we get to keep our Seer, who's been, to Seer's credit, a lot of work in this game. Just being a big, like, sailor of means without a treasure, you know what I mean? Just getting in the way, being in the way. It's a very good blocker, very good defensive player. Just be in the way. This is a good draw. Blow out like a big attack with the Titan or something like that. So I'll leave that up and play the Ceradon. I believe I can get in for 5 here. Start that clock. So we can go 5/5. My opponent's at 8, and then lethal if they don't interact with the flyers. So that will be the plan. Doesn't matter what order we do it in, as our opponent won't have any decisions to make. No cards in hand. Big old Ceradon. Can take on plenty of these creatures and just be a big dumb animal. Even an Initiate may still be needed to block, say, a Galvanic Titan. That Menace ability can still be a problem. But Haven and Seer can gang up on the Titan, and our opponent can only kill one of them. So that's kind of why they're sticking around. Javelin I don't want to trade unless I have to. We can still have a pretty swingy effect on the game, keep things from blocking if our opponent does find something to put in the air. Certainly makes the 3/1 zombie bird look bad. If our opponent just wanted to move in, well, of course it would matter what they play with the Bloodlust Insider. It could be significant. We have the Unsummon, but what would entice them to move in? I guess maybe a Manticore, similar to the one that we have, the 5/4 with the Flick 3. Might be a good reason to charge in. An Inferno Jet. Our opponent could hope to get some big hits in and YOLO with Inferno Jet. Burn us out. Could be a problem. So those are things we're watching for. Of course, Unsummon really helps. Also worth noting, Sand Strangler doesn't have a great target right now on the board, but it can combine with the Javelineer to take out something like the Titan or the Scrounger. Here is a Lethal Sting. We could bounce our own Ceradon. Our opponent gets 2 triggers here from Festering Mummy. Where would they like to put their -1/-1 counter? I wouldn't be surprised if it went on the Initiate, but it could go on the Seer, which has been a major thorn in the side. It's going to target the Javelineer, possibly trying to create an attacking lane for this Grounger of Souls. We could bounce our own Ceradon. That's probably a good idea. We got these big dumb animals. But let's look at what the attack step looks like here. He comes in with this. We still have this double block. Scrounger now. We don't have a good block on the Scrounger, so maybe this is what we want to bounce, but our opponent can just give it haste. So it's not like we gained a lot, but yeah, I think we would rather let the Ceradon die because we have the Riverwinder to replace it, but use the Unsummon to stall this attack and then put out a big body again. Unfortunately, if the Scrounger gets in, 3 life could be relevant, so maybe that's our bounce. Let's see what happens. No attacks? My goodness, that is very conservative. We drew the Precious Desert, and now we can play Riverwinder and keep Unsummon up, which unsummoning Sand Strangler might be very sweet. We would love to put a -1/-1 counter or damage on these somehow to make the Strangler better. Strangler could take out Inciter though and just make life better, but Javelineer can also do a fine job of that. Javelineer can discard the Strangler, kill the Inciter, put a -1/-1 counter, and then Strangler can finish the job. That's probably great. It also makes something unable to block, but that's not an issue right now. Alright, so we will activate this. I think getting rid of the lifelinker so there's no potential to race is good. So that goes to the graveyard, which still works for Sand Strangler. Opponent still, like, our opponent has no choices to make, so the sequencing doesn't matter if all that we're attacking with is the flyers, which is my plan. So I'm just going to do this first main, since it doesn't make a difference. It helps me with clearer thinking. Some people would say attack first because, but in this case, it doesn't make a difference. Generally, as a habit, though, it's a good idea. If your opponent does have like blocks to consider, if they had, say, a flyer, I would want to attack first and make them make their decisions. Of course, if they had a flyer, I'd probably be killing it. Alright, that creature's down. Let's move to combat. Since the only thing I'm worried about here is the Titan, I'm ready to get in with both and shorten the clock. And we have the unsummon, so unsummoning the Titan is a fine play if our opponent tries to alpha strike us somehow with some insult to injury type effect. And now a hit from the Glyph Keeper is lethal even if they draw away to remove the initiate. And of course, Glyph Keeper takes 2 targetings. Unfortunately, Bloodlust Insider can target the Glyph Keeper, but the Glyph Keeper can also be embalmed right back, which is why it is a bomb. Gilded Ceradon. Alright, our opponent can give it haste. They do not have a desert, so it can't use the you can't block ability. So it's their last chance to do some damage. But it doesn't... There's no good attacks here. Our opponent didn't give the Ceradon haste. I don't think they intend to use them, and this game should be over once the turn is passed. Ah, I see. Our opponents decided to throw Caution to the Wind very late, if I'm being perfectly honest, but I guess they might argue better late than never. Alright, you can block here. You can block here. You can block here. 3 blockers. We'll unsummon the Titan. So they have no more priority, so we can end the game. And we'll get the Stevens for the good measures. So a long, deliberate game, but we continue getting there. We've got 2 losses, so the next loss knocks us out, but we do have 3 wins, so we have some gems and boosters coming. Can we get to 7? Can we make a run? You never know when the runs might come, so it's important to stay mentally tough and ready for when the cards start flowing the way you want them to. We got to Kefnet's Last Word for the first time in this format. Our steal was a Javelineer, which I'm pretty happy with. I'm glad to see the Glyph Keeper right here to go with an early removal spell, a few early plays. The Seer maybe really earning the keep, and he has the combo at ready with the Survivors, so this might be good. Let's play the Desert. I don't think I'll be cycling it this game, as hitting land drops and getting our Glyph Keeper down is definitely a priority. Kefnet's Last Word. Nice. Survivor, battlefield. Big toughness on the ground, power in the sky. That's age-old success recipe. Sand Strangler. So we're drawing a lot of our good cards. Let's just hope that we don't brick out on land. Sunscorched Desert. Perhaps our opponent really needs the desert. Or they're mono white. They do have the camel ready to go. Alright. Do we blow that up? Seems like a fine play. There might be better targets for this down the line, but that's what Kefnet's Last Word is for. Also what Blur Blades can help with. So why not? We could attack first. If our opponent blocks with the camel, Blur Bladesing it will kill it. They will gain life. I don't think it's really worth it to him. I don't think he'll block. If there's a double block, we can blow that up too. Except this does, I guess, they do combine on the Cunning Survivor for lethal. So I don't think it's worth it. That big 2-for-1 swing on turn 4. And hopefully a land off the top for the Glyph Keeper. If not, we've got spells to play. Opponent playing Desert White, it seems, which is not something I've ever seen. And there's Desert's Hold, so that did something. Our Sacred Cat's coming in. Our Unsummon might come in very handy later. Alright, let's send the boys. or girls, or whatever gender neutral thing they want to be. And pull out the skirmisher. I really don't want to blur blades a cat. Hopefully we get a better target. Cat wants to come in. I'm not going to mess with that. Okay, my turn. Still gonna hang on. Devastator's fine here. Let's see what kind of instant speed shenanigans our opponent has for us. I'm guessing a Sandblast, which none of these are great targets. I'm perfectly fine with him using it here if he wants to. Alright, takes it. We shall devastate. Opponent may have a second color that they're not getting to use. That's with a cast out. Saving Grace. Interesting. Well, our opponent now has a 1/4. Saving Grace oddly could have been played, but then it would die. Seems like a pretty weak white playable here. Do we just go in hot? I believe that we do. Pull the Glyph Keeper afterwards. I don't see another use for a mana here. Let's keep it coming. The Skirmisher is the only thing that is a waste in this spot. These basically nullify each other out if he blocks over here, and if he blocks here we can activate. But are we putting these at risk needlessly? I don't think they're that valuable, so I'm not going to worry about it. He's going to block the Devastator, which is Afflict 2, and I actually don't want to pump it. I want to play Glyph Keeper. If our opponent puts another big aura on this cat, I'll just steal it. That'll be so rude. Crested Sunmare. Wow. No first strike or anything here, so I can eat it. But my opponent does get a big indestructible force. So there's that. We'll have to take that away now. So this loses indestructible once I gain control of the Sunmare. So it is an interesting situation where I could attack with the Devastator, get 4 damage on it, but not 5. So that's not very good. Blur Blades could put a -1/-1 counter on it, and then it would take 3. That's not enough either. So none of that's very good. We'll just instead send the Air Force. Try to leave a red untapped. And to take away your Sunmare. If our opponent has a ton of life gain type theme built around Sunmare, that'll be a pretty devastating play. The horse is no longer indestructible. And with Blur of Blades, if he attempts to trade his horse for the Sunmare we now control, the opponent has seen enough. As we drew the good cards, as you might say, in that game. The good cards came a-calling. So we got to 4 wins. 4 and 2 on the deck. I wouldn't have been surprised if it turned out as a 7-win deck. I don't think that's likely now with the 2 rough draws that we had, but like I said, stay open. Maybe the cards will come calling you. I go first. So this is a hand that burned us earlier, that's for sure. A similar type of hand, where we even had cyclers. Can you keep 2 lands and Proving Combatant and Cunning Survivor with some 4-drops and this? I don't think so. I think I've got to try for better. We had some early plays, but if our opponent just goes like good 3-drop, good 4-drop, like say any green creature, we're dead. This hand, by comparison though, Cunning Survivor and Sand Strangler with the Desert, possible that this poll from tomorrow will come up much later to undo the mulligan, so even if we flood out, we're okay. I can keep that. Inferno Jet on top is not really what I'm looking for. Putting on the bottom is sad, as we have no way to shuffle and get it back. Whereas if we keep it, we just have a cycler. Is that fine? This is like a free cycle, though. The only problem is in the graveyard, Bloodwater Entity can get it, and we might win the game. But right now, I don't think that's very likely, so I'll take the free cycle. Try to draw a better curve. I never thought I'd say this, but I really do want that 1/4 creature. After our Faithful, are we playing against another Crested Sunmare deck? Could it be? This gains 1 life when they cast a blue, black, or red spell. Very interesting card. Some people may get excited by that. I wouldn't call it good. I don't think there's any reason to bluff attack here. No upside. I wouldn't call it necessarily free, although there isn't much haste, but maybe there was an aura getting thrown on this. However, I'll be excited to play Wildfire Eternal here. Our opponent can just take the damage, but if we draw spells, we get to play them free. Ooh, never? The Cunning Survivor? I'm very happy. I hope that doesn't mean our opponent's deck is all removal, that they would use such a premium spell on a Cunning Survivor. That would be sad, but we will see. The signal that sends is a scary one. If their deck is all good, has a lot of good 1/1 removal, hopefully Pull from Tomorrow and Glyph Keeper can just get us ahead. We can 2-for-1 them out of the game. Opponent checking out the Wildfire, possibly aiming another murder type spell in its direction. And that is tapping with purpose. Our opponent may have like curses. There's a curse. I was also going to say possibly Cruel Reality is a card. So discarding cards here is really sad. I think we pay life for as long as we can afford to, which is just using our life total as a resource. I wonder if I Sand Strangle this Faithful out of the way. It seems like a very bad use of the card, but just getting bodies on the field to make things happen might be important. It's a tough spot. See what our opponent decides to do. It's not like there's great targets for removal here. So, cast an instant, resolve, and damage. Yes, that's one. And now I have to play Survivor here. Keep playing land so that Pull from Tomorrow gets better, so we can get ahead on cards. Once we have a whole bunch of lands on the battlefield and cards in our hand, we can discard those, possibly keep up with Torment. If they torment us again, that's no fun. It's a Torment of Venom. Targeting... I can't see what it's targeting. It's targeting the Survivor. We would sacrifice the Eternal. I don't think that's the play. I think we have to keep paying life, which is not fun. I gotta tell you, not fun. So our opponent's being very annoying. This is a deck you can build. It is a deck that I think people like way too much. I don't think it is that good, but it's good in this spot without question. Still, our opponent doesn't have a clock on us. We can go pretty low on life total and just focus on being ahead of our opponent on the board and hurting them if we can. Faithful does make that tough, but if they don't kill this Manticore, they're in trouble. I would guess they have something to do, or they wouldn't have burned their Never to Return so easily. So they might be all removal spell and torments, which, like I said, it's a deck. You can do it. Okay, well, they have what I would call a pretty bad creature. So happy to see that. I will lose 3 life. Keep that coming. Even Initiate's good. But the easy play here is the Sand Strangler. And let's get him. start getting some damage on our opponent. That's the way it's gonna be. We can discard this, it has Embalm. So that's not a terrible discard, at least, if we have to discard some cards. Opponent's still on 4, so they've got plays for days. That is annoying, having another one. So playing a flyer might be important so that we don't die to it. So what am I doing otherwise? I think I'll sacrifice Wildfire Eternal, as it's just not doing enough. Which is too bad. And we draw another land, that's helpful. Alright, combat. Attack. Everybody into the pool. Play the land. Again, make our pull from tomorrow better, which we might have to do on upkeep in response to Torment of Scarabs coming up next turn. I'll put a stop on my upkeep for that. Our opponent's still somehow just so ahead on cards. Like I guess every play they've had, getting them there. Block. Pretty easy block. I think I'm in a place where I can pay life. Disposable money doesn't intimidate me. The difference between having an extra card could be huge. Well, gaining control of this doesn't change anything, so it's not a good play. I guess I should hold this back. It just gets blocked by the Faithful, and the Mummy could get him for points. So a Mana Core is going to keep coming at our opponent, make him respect it. Holding up mana, sort of intimidating versus playing a land this turn, which I don't think I'd want to do very much anyway, as discarding a card might be an important part of playing against the Torment here. If our opponent plays a big flyer, I'll be very happy. Here it comes. I bet it's an Aven that gains 3 life. Oh my. Alright, so we've got to do this in response. So we have discards we can make. Alright. Island can go. We can go to 2. That's not a lot of wiggle room, that's for sure. So discard. You. Discard. You. Discard. You. And then on upkeep go to 2. But we get Glyph Keeper down. Our opponent can't take it all whether they die, but the Faithful's still there to stop the Strangler, which might be the sacrifice next turn, but right now it's holding off the Mummy, and we are at 2, after all. But this is a big one. Blocking is still an Afflict, so our opponent will go to 3, and now they will have to survive the Glyph Keeper. But if they have another Torment, 1, 2, 3, we can stay alive, unless they have a land. And then actually we'd have to sacrifice Glyph Keeper on our upkeep. So another Torment of Hailfire would be ridiculous, as it's a rare. But it would be just what the doctor ordered. Our opponent drafting a brutal Torment deck. There is a Merciless Eternal. It gains a life. Does he have a way to stop the Glyph Keeper? If not, oh my gosh. So we've had a heck of a race, but it looks like we're going to pull this off. I just don't understand that never to return early in the game, but it's our opponent's decision, not ours. He's hoping we misplay. And combat, attacks. There's no lifelink over there, correct? Correct. Alright. Thank you, Glyphkeeper, and thank you, Manticore, getting us through that very tough game. I'm sure there were times there where it looked miserable, and it's very annoying to play against the people who absolutely, no matter what, run the Torment decks. But I do find them to be pretty bad overall, because if your opponent is just making plays on the board that are bigger and stronger, and Torment is making them lose some life and discard some cards while you're getting beaten down, the opponent usually wins that race. On the play, I think I can keep this. On the play, I think I can. On the draw, this would be very slow and very scary. I'm going to just go ahead and get the desert onto the field and plan on a nice, juicy pull from tomorrow, rather than a cycle there. Inferno Jet, though, I'll probably just cycle, as at this stage in the game, it's not doing much. Lure Blade's a great draw. Keeps us from getting beaten down too much early. Avenger, which is the perfect target. Couldn't be happier. Alright, another land means this Jet should be cycled. We could just do it now. Proven Combatant would be a card that we'd play, although discarding it to pull from tomorrow would be even better. So I guess I wouldn't even play a Proven Combatant if I drew it. So we can wait. Make it look like we have that cancel. Nobody likes that. 3 white mana and a Dauntless Aven. Also a great Inferno Jet target, but or not Inferno Jet, but Blur Blade's target. But I'm pretty happy with how that played. Alright, another land, another land. Here we go again. Frontline Devastator. Let's make our opponent have an answer. Certainly a race we can win if all that they do is use an Aven. So blue mana, and not another mono white deck. There is some sanity in this world. Cartouche of Knowledge. Already flies, but drawing a card's nice. Especially while we're tapped out. Does mean our opponent's plays aren't great. If they had a good 4 or 3 drop, they would definitely play that over the play they made. So, alright, let's go. Gladly trade for a control-ish deck, so alright. I think I'll go ahead and use a pump to make sure that we're ahead in the race a little. Keeping up the cancel that we didn't have before, so our opponent probably not playing around it here. Hopefully we catch something juicy. Unquenchable Thirst, is that worth it? No, I don't think so. Well, it is our only threat, and our opponent doesn't seem to have more good cards based on the Cartouche play last turn. So we can counter it, make our opponent use another removal spell if they have one. Found another blue, and they have a Desert's Hold, but no life. Alright, they did go through 2 removal spells, and we have an unsummon that can save our boy. I think we play this and try to put off our pull from tomorrow, so that's huge and juicy. We saw in the past that pulling for 4, when you draw 4 lands, just wasn't good enough, and Dauntless Haven's a problem, but I have a lot of answers in the deck. I have faith I will find one. Now what would be scary here is another flyer. There it is. So do we go for 2, or do we go... We can try to draw 2 cards. We could just die if we don't find something here, so I guess we have to, which is very bad. Not the way I wanted it to be. And we didn't find the answer yet, but we can put Pull from Tomorrow back on top of the deck. Blur Blades doesn't solve anything. Cancel Inferno Jet. We're not in a race position. So it's the Entity. I guess we have to play Entity so it can block the Aven. Our opponent will likely have something to mess with it. I think the Cunning Survivor is a free attack here. Our opponent's probably too scared to block, and we might just cycle. If we cycle into Blur Blades... That's 2. Blades makes 3. I guess the Survivor... No, it wouldn't live. We can dig up Blur Blades right now with the Entity, and that threatens a trade when we cycle for it. Is that better than getting Pull? I probably don't have time for pull, so I think it actually is better. So with this we can cycle for the blur, trade the entity for the angel, and probably just hold back the Aven. However, if our opponent has a removal spell, that's very bad. Oh well, you have to take some chances. Kind of a Hail Mary moment. Our tournament on the line. There's the wrappings, making it an 0-2. Sad. We can still trade it for the Aven. If our opponent doesn't have a trick. So we cycle into Blur Blades. We cast Blur Blades. Trigger Prowess. Get a -1/-1 counter on the Aven. And we'll get to keep our entity. So now we need some of our big bomb draws off the top. If our opponent messes us up, we're dead next turn, almost certainly. And Farm will take out the entity. Well, in a way we got a 2-for-1 out of the deal, and we weakened the Aven, and we blocked it for a turn, but it's still not good enough. That's for sure. Sierra tomorrow. We have one more turn, unless our opponent can pump this. So, looks like we're going to fall to the Blue-White Flyers deck. Possibly a misplay getting Cunning Survivor down when it didn't matter very much. Should have just drawn 4 cards with pull from tomorrow. Should have seen the Angel coming. So, going out on a bit of a sad note. Surely they kept a hand with some good action on the top end in a situation like that. So Kefnet's Last Word will do it if we could steal this Angel, but we can't. We'll mill ourselves and see what was near the top. I don't think I ever got to cast Puncturing Blow in this deck. Unsummon was near the top. Not very effective. But we made a run for it. We got some wins. Again, like that was a game where I feel like the draw was okay and I failed, but 2 of the losses I feel there was nothing to do about. RNG just hits you and then your deck is dead. I really would like to play that deck a few more times, but that's the way it is. That's the way that this draft format works, and it's quite... It is the big problem with the format, is a little bit of RNG and you wasted your time drafting and building if you actually want to test and see your results. But onto the positive things. We have a Vault to crack, and since it's all wild cards anyway, we'll just look at our shiny wild cards, claim those, and we will crack some packs. So Hour of Devastation, we get an uncommon, we get a lot of gray things, and we get a rare wild card. So it is a wild card party. And Dominaria, this is one of our weekly packs, not a reward from draft. And we get a lot of gray stuff. Blood Flame, Settle the Score. And for our rare, a 4 Bearer's Blade. Alright, so that's the haul for today. That's the video for today. I hope you enjoyed this draft event. They go on the weekend, not weekday right now. Dominaria draft will be in the future. And if you want to try your hand at Limited, I think it works well on the client. I don't particularly like the playing format, but you've heard my comments on that. You don't need to hear them again. Thank you for watching this video. I will see you next time.